So that's um, what we're going to be looking at. That's aggregation and data analysis with SQL. So let's go ahead and go to our workbench and look at how it works. So the first thing is I said aggregate functions are just for calculations on multiple rows of a table's column. And this is going to return a single value for us. So the common function we will be looking about is just let me just see.
I'm sorry, you're not sharing the
I'm not
screen.
sharing my screen. I've forgotten. Oh, all right.
Please, I beg you to record, please.
It's recorded. Okay, you should all see my screen now. Okay, I say we're going to be starting with the first one, which is count. Our comment is going to be function, aggregate functions. So the count function is the first thing we'll be looking at. The count is going to return the number of rows for us. That's just it. That's just how simple it is. And then the sum is going to perform addition on the column. And then average is going to find the average value of the numeric column. And then minimum and maximum will return the smallest and the highest value in the column respectively. So let's look at how it's going to be. The first one is count. So the same syntax is going to be used, which are select always comes first. Instead of selecting the column name first, our aggregate function is going to come first. So we're going to select the count function first. The count, it's already a function on its own. You can see it's highlighted instead of dark. It's highlighted as um it's somehow ash, I'll say. So it's highlighted as a reserved function. So any function that you have in SQL, it's always in a bracket. You have to specify what you want to actually count. So instead of counting everything, we just want to count one department. We want to know how many people actually work in the sales department. So instead of selecting one, you can specify the things you want to count. You can specify everything you want to count. Specify them the way you want. Specify the column names here. But since we want to count the whole of the sales department, that is the whole of the sales department, we're going to use asterisks there. Then there's one thing I didn't see is alias. Alias is just used for temporary table column. If you're returning results, if you look at how we try to return results, let's see. If you run this, okay, you have an error in your syntax. What's happening? Where is the error? All right. If you look at it, you have first name and last name. But if we're carrying out any calculation, it's going to return anything for us apart from this first name and last name because we didn't specify it. So that alias is going to help us to specify the column name. That's just a temporary column name. We're just giving a column name of our own. So let's say we want to select the let's say employees under the sales department. We can just say count of sales department. We just say sales count. That's something we decide on our own. And then you say from data set, that's our data name. And then we state our condition, which is where department, all right, is equal to, we state our department, which is sales, right? So that's just how simple it is. So you can see the difference. It's just minimal difference. So if you run this right now, you can see we have 67 people working in the sales department. You can also use this to check other departments. Let's say we want to check the marketing department. can use this to know how many people works in the marketing department. We have 62 people working in the marketing department. But for this, it's the sales department, and I'm going to leave it under the sales department. So that's just how to use the count function. So it's the same thing all through. It's the same thing all through for sum. Let's see how the sum function works. The sum aggregation function works. So it's the same thing. Let's say we want to find the total salaries being paid to the marketing department. Maybe we want to reduce the salaries being paid to the marketing department, and we want to know how much total is being paid to the marketing department. We can as well use the sum function to know the total salaries being paid. So this is going to be select, and then we state what we want to, and then the bracket, and then we type the column name. Instead of all, we're not just using one column. You can see here was just one column. That's the department column. That's why we just use asterisk to count the whole of the department. For this, we want to use two columns, which is the salary column and the department column. So we're going to use salary because sum only works with numbers. You can't find the sum of names. You can't find the sum of people working in the sales department. You can't. You can only count. That's just the difference. We all know this in Power BI. So we're going to use aliases. That's let's say total salary. This is total salary paid to marketing department. So we leave it like this. Sorry. All right, marketing department. Then we state the name of our tape or data, name of our tape, and then we state our conditions, which is where department, all right, is equal to. We now specify marketing, all right, okay. So if you look at it right now, it's just the same thing as this, but the difference is we understand sum is just about numbers. You can't find the sum of alphabets. There's a way to do that, but this is not the way to find the sum of alphabets. You can only use sum to find sum of numbers. So you can see around 4.7 million, that's 4729724 has been paid or is being paid to the marketing department. That's the total salary paid to the marketing department. That's just how to use the sum function. The next thing is average. Okay. In the average, let's see, in the average is the same thing we're going to look at. Let's say we want to know the total, the average salary we're paying across all the departments in the company, okay, or what our employees are being paid. So the employer is paid is how much is paying the employees. So let's see. Um, we're going to select average, all right, and then we specify average and sum are just the same thing. You can't find the average of numbers. You can't find the average of alphabets, only numbers. So average salary, then we say as, let's just say AVG salary. In Power BI, you know you have to be editing this manually and be writing it, but here you have to write it on your own. So you just say select salary average as salary average. This one is not um we're not going to be selecting a department. We just want to know how much average salary is being paid across all the departments. So we just say employees, not employees, rather I forgot the data set name. So that's just simple how the syntax is. And you can see we have an average of 67,090.8360 being paid out as the average salary the company is paying out. So that's just all about average. And it gets complex. We're going to look at that. Don't worry. It gets complex when you want to display. Maybe we want to know how much is being paid to each department, and we want to find the average each department is collecting. We're going to get to that. So let's look at it. All right. So the mean max is just is just let me get it. Um Mean and max. All right. So in the mean max function, sorry, I just want to reply to him. If you can come in, please. All right. So using the min max function, it's just I just want to combine both the two of them together, right? So this is select. We use select, and then if you look at the way I'm going to arrange the code, I'm going to arrange the code in a way that it's going to be readable. I talked about readability in our last class. So the min max is a function. So we're going to state um, our column name. We want to know, let's say, maximum salary or minimum salary. Then let's just say as mean salary, and then we say max salary also as sorry, as max salary, and then we say from, sorry, I didn't use comma here, so it's going to underline that as well. So we just say from, we give in our table name, which is data set. All right. We run this right now. Okay, there's an error on non-column salary. You see the spelling I was talking about, right? Small mistake, you are going to get an error. So let's go. All right, you can see we have the minimum salary as 30,025, 30,205, and then 119,838. That's just how to use the min and the max. If you don't want to, if you want to use them individually, okay, you can just, let me just say what. All right, this is just the syntax for the min max. All right, you can see it's returning just once, but you can also just use comma to separate them and then also get both for the max. That's going to help you to not to write codes that you don't need. Okay, so that's just it about the min and the max function. So that's all about aggregation function. The next thing is grouping data. We want to look at how grouping data works. Let's see how grouping data works. So we've grouped data in Power BI. All right. So the same thing is going to happen here. We're going to group data here in SQL, right? So the group by is just a statement that we use to group rows that have the same values into summary rows, and it's commonly used with aggregate functions. You can you can see why we introduced aggregate function in the first place. The aggregate function is going to help us to work with grouping. All right. So let's say now we want to group employees by department and calculate the total salary for each of the department. You can't use group by without using aggregate function. Mark this one. You can't use group by without using aggregate function. So we want to group employees by their department and calculating the total salary for each department. I talk about this. So let's see. The syntax is going to be select. Remember, you can now call your column name, which is you select the department name, the department, and then we use the aggregate function to find the sum of all the salaries, all right, of all the departments. And then we give it an alias, let's see, as total salary. Let's see, as total salaries. And we specify our table name, and then we group by. You can see most of our coding is just English, right? This is not actually, it's not an actual programming, it's just English. So this is going to give us our result. Let's see, okay. You can see now we have department, IT department, logistics, support, finance, HR, marketing, and sales. And each department is having its own total salary being paid. So you can use order by here. That's we talk about order by year. You can use order by year right now to get the department that is getting the highest salary. So um you order by um we're ordering by salary, right? Ordering by salary descending. This should give us a result. Nope. Um what's the result saying? Which is depending on the columns group by clause. Okay. Let's just use department rather, but this shouldn't give us. This shouldn't give us. All right, you can see it now. The IT was the first, but this time around, support department has the highest salary. I don't know why the support department is having the highest salaries, but support department has the highest salary, followed by sales, marketing, logistics, and then downward. So that's just how to use group by you for grouping your data. So the next one is this is just sum, okay? You can decide to change this to average, right? I don't have to write another code. You can just change that to average and then execute this and still have the same result. This is average, while the first one was sum. It's the same syntax, okay? It's the same syntax for both average. Anything average and sum, you have the same syntax, okay? Mark that. So that's all for the grouping data. It's not much. That's what I was saying. If we can wrap everything in this section. So that's all for the grouping data. The next thing is we need to look at how to filter data using having. Having is just um a clause or a function that helps us to filter records that are grouped. So if we group a record, we can now filter the record based on how we want it to appear. So it's just used after our aggregation function. So let's see how we can use that. So it's filtering data with having. So let's say we want to find department where total salary exceeds 100,000. Okay, we've done that. We've used greater than during our first class. So let's see how we can effect this right now. So we can just say select department because we want to find departments where the salary exceeds 100,000. So we can just say department. Sorry, my department spellings. We just say department and then the sum of the salary and then we give in an alias, which is just say, let's say total salaries, total salary, and then we call in our data set, and we group by department, and then we say having the sum of the salaries. Okay, this having is a bit confusing, all right, but as I see it, it's used to filter records that are grouped. So we have grouped this department by salaries. We've grouped department by salaries, and we want to filter the rows of the department group. So let's say um greater than, say, 100,000, right? So this is 100,000. So if we execute this right now, it's going to give us the same thing as the one I did here. That's where did I do it? Was it here, right? Okay. You can see it's the same thing, right? It's the same thing, we're getting the result, the same code. So as I said earlier, I said SQL have many ways to do one thing. You can see we've gotten the same thing, but here, instead of listing um salaries greater than 100,000 based on the group department, that's just the difference. Instead of leaving it like that, we use the having to limit it to 100,000. We can use 1 million to see. If we use 1 million right now, we're still going to have a result because each of the salaries here, all of the departments total salary exceeds 1 million. But let me say we have 2 4 years, so let me limit it to 5 million. Let me use 5 million so that we can. Is it 5 million or 500,000? This is 5 million. All right, let me add another zero. So if I execute it right now, you can see. Are you sure this is 5 million? This is 500,000. What's happening? Okay. All right. So you can see it's limiting to just five departments right now. So it's just like if you look at it closely, we've already done this, and it's just having an advanced way to doing it because you're going to have very complex data set that you need to calculate um sophisticated things. So you would always need some of these things. You can't just use the simplest one because it's easier to do. You have to know what you want and then know how to handle it with the best query available. So let's look at another option again. Let's say we want to only show departments with an average salary greater than 50,000. So it's just the same thing. All right. Instead of sum here, you're changing it to average. And we're going to have the same result. Let me just copy this and then paste. And instead of sum, we're going to use, sorry, we're going to use AVG. Sorry, I think I did something somewhere that average salary is greater than yes 5 million. All right, it's the same thing if we execute this code right now. Okay, this is 50 million rather. All right, still there's no department with such average. All right, all right, we have something right now. So that's just it about filtering aggregate data using having. I'm looking at something right now. Maybe in the next 10 minutes we'll be rounding up this class. So let's see. The next thing is using these things to remove duplicates. If we have duplicate data, which is the best thing to do, if you have duplicate data, you have to remove the duplicate. Um, so yeah, distinct is just used to remove only distinct. That's different values from a column. If we have the same values, it's going to keep them, remove them, and then bring values that stands out. That's unique values. But for this data set, we don't have such. So let's get a list of distinct departments. We want to know how many departments are in this data set and how many unique departments do we have. So let's just say select distinct. That's the syntax, okay? This is the syntax for distinct. All right. During your data exploration, when you want to explore your data, which is just your steps before you start working on the data. When you want to explore, you want to know your data, you can use this distinct to get everything you want to get. So you just see from data set rather. So that's just, this is the syntax you can then get. This is just the departments we have. We have 7 departments in the company, and that's just how to use distinct. Then maybe you want to know the count of distinct of departments, okay? Let's say you want to find the count. We can use select and then we use the count function. And then we use the distinct. All right. Sorry, I'm using capital letters. All right. You can see instead of just count of department, we're using distinct. Distinct will differentiate it. That means it's going to return only the unique departments for us. So let's say, let's use alias. So let's say as unique departments. And then we see from our data set. So if we run this right now, you can see we have 7 unique departments. This is giving us the number instead of giving us the whole data. That's just the difference between this and this one. You can use this to get the number and then use this to get the list. That's just the difference between the first query and the second query. So that's all about using this thing to remove duplicates. So the last thing, which is the final thing, is using union and union all. So union and union all is just for you to combine results. You might not have gotten this in Excel and Power BI. So it's different in SQL. You might see it in Python. That's if you want to learn Python. So I was teaching myself. I was teaching myself.